Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Hello, all you high flyers out there. It's time to get back down to earth and plant your feet firmly on the ground. But at the same time, keep your head in the clouds, because that's where the dreamers like you belong. Feet on the ground, head in the clouds. Now don't move, because we're coming at you with another dreamy episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. And here he is, fully stretched out in all his elasticized glory. Welcome to the microphone, Matthew Dickerson.
I'm a bit concerned about the picture you painted with there, James.
Mr. Fantastic, the stretchy one.
That's it. Now, this week I've been on a bit of a road trip, and I ended up plugging into a supercharger, which you often do when you go on a road trip. And I pulled up, backed in, plugged in, and there beside me is a BYD ute plugged in, charging.
You're in Australia.
In Australia, there's a ute. How can that possibly be? And I must admit, I try and keep up to date with what's happening with electric vehicles, and I must admit, I'd missed the memo about a BYD electric ute.
Well, so had I, but it's interesting you should mention this. Coincidentally, 100% coincidentally, I saw something on the weekend in social media feed, just a reel of this guy driving and reviewing the BYD ute. I didn't even know they had one.
No, well, I went over there, and as you do when you're plugging a supercharger, you go and start chatting with the people around you. So, how you going? I said, how's this thing going? He said, oh, you're good. And I started chatting away. He'd owned it for a week, so that was pretty exciting. This is the first time he'd plugged into a supercharger, to a public charger. He'd charged at home. But I kept chatting, but then the penny dropped. I realised it was a hybrid ute.
Oh.
That's why I hadn't got the memo about the fact there was a BYD EV ute. So I looked it up afterwards, and certainly BYD have talked about the fact they would like to have an EV, a full EV ute. But what threw me was...
So I didn't realise BYD did hybrids.
Well, again, we see so much from BYD, don't we, around EV. Some of their sedans are EV, some of their normal cars, not utes, are full EV. So, again, I made the ignorant assumption that I saw BYD, I was the same as you. I went, okay, that's EV, but I don't remember seeing, because I thought there'd be a bit of fanfare about the release of a full electric ute, because everyone says you can't have a ute, it wrecks your weekend, all that sort of rubbish that people carry on with. So I talked about it because the first interesting part was when he said, I won't take long, I'm just going to duck over and grab a coffee and it'll be completely fully charged. I was completely empty. I went, you can top up in that time, but you might need a little bit longer. And then he says only got a 30 kilowatt hour battery. And I went, hold on a sec, something's going wrong here. 30 kilowatt hour battery, it's a bigger car than normal, which is when I went, I don't think this is a full EV. So I kept chatting to him, and he was fully aware of the fact that it wasn't a full EV. Which
he wasn't pretending.
Makes sense, that's right. But he said he gets around 80 to maybe 100 kilometres out of it on EV or in full electric mode.
Oh, okay.
Drives mainly around the area that I was charging up at, drives mainly around there, and he was most excited about the power points in the back tray. He just loved the idea of that. Hadn't used them yet, but loved the idea that he could plug in a normal appliance into the normal power points, the normal GPOs in the back of the tray. So I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, he's pretty excited about it all, and it's good to see. I mean, one of the things with hybrid, I'm not the greatest fan of a hybrid, because it's just taking the same internal combustion technology we've already got and makes it a bit more efficient. But I also understand it is a gateway step. It's a step where people just can't take the full step. I like the idea of full EV, but I'm a bit scared. It gives them a chance to just go that little baby step, and they go, this isn't too bad. And for this particular person, 30 kilowatt hours, 80 kilometres, drive around most of your day, depending how far you're driving.
Yeah.
Running around
so
like that.
80 kilometres, for so many people who live in the town that we live in, they'd be doing less than 80 kilometres per day.
Absolutely.
And so you're plugging in each night and just topping it up just that little bit.
And even if you lived in a big city like a Sydney or a Los Angeles, you might have a half-hour commute to work, but that might be 5 kilometres. So
But if you're sitting at the lights, you're not using up the battery if you're using in EV mode.
Yeah, that's right. So it might be chewing a bit of battery to play the radio or something minor.
So we talk about gateway. It might be that your mate has got a BYD hybrid ute. And he reckons that you can get by with just the power from the electricity. Yeah. So you just, maybe you go full EV next time.
That's exactly right. So I think that's the secret. Some of the companies that are really focused on an EV strategy like BYD are saying, well, if we take advantage of hybrid to begin with rather than the end game, but also in the ute market because it's a bit of a challenge to get reasonable range out of a ute to be able to convince those tradies out there that this is a good option. But I think that's a good stepping stone. So, yeah, it's good to chat to people that are really stepping outside their comfort zone and trying something a bit different as well.
But just wait till they pop the hood and then there's no motor there.
That's right, when they get to that stage.
No engine.
And it's got a 1.5 litre turbocharged engine. So it's not a big motor in there. And it was a decent sized ute.
Yeah.
My wife was impressed because it had a pretty colour. So she thought the particular blue was very nice. So they've covered all angles.
Same. That's all my wife cares about as well. All right, now in today's episode, we're all about the charge speed. We'll see how BYD has gotten the EV world chafing at the bit, all over the charge speed there. We'll do our regular check-in on how AI is making our life better. This time it's good news for the sufferers of chronic back pain. And we'll see how NASA is looking to speed up your morning commute. But more of that later. Let's move on to our first story, all about Tesla's crossover into Toontown. Now, have you seen the viral video yet of Mark Rober ploughing his Tesla straight into a wall? It's just like a scene straight out of a Roadrunner cartoon, with the wall of styrofoam painted like a landscape. It's pretty funny to watch. But Matt, what's the backstory on this?
Well, it is an interesting backstory because Tesla have said for a long time, we don't need that fancy LiDAR because that's expensive. So LiDAR is a bit like radar, if you like, light detection and ranging. So it's working out what's around the vehicle, not via vision, but by using, again, similar to radar, where it's bouncing signals off. And most, maybe not all, but most of the manufacturers out there that have got some form of self-driving believe that they need LiDAR in there. But Tesla said, no, that's too expensive, too fancy. You just need cameras because guess what? Humans have got eyes. We don't have fancy sensors that send out signals and bounce back. So let's make a car just like a human. And there's been some logic to that. My personal view is that maybe I don't want both in there, but ignore that for the moment. So what Mark Rober did was he was inspired by the good old Roadrunner. Roadrunner cartoon, 1949 to 1966 was when that series ran. So when we were
66.
1960 finished, but then we would have watched rerun 17.
That's right. Yeah.
But of course, the Roadrunner, and for anyone that is a bit younger and hasn't watched Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, it's quite humorous. Maybe it's not so much sometimes when you go forward, but I think if I watched it again, it'd be quite humorous. But the poor old Wile E. Coyote could never take a trick. And one of the classics, of course, was Roadrunner would run along and there'd be a boulder there, American cartoon, a big rock, paint a tunnel on there, just like you see people doing street art, and it looks just like a tunnel.
Yeah.
But, of course, the Roadrunner would run through the tunnel. And then when Wile E. Coyote would come along, he'd hit the brick wall or hit the big slab of boulder because it wasn't actually a tunnel there. And that's where the inspiration came for this. So what Mark Rober did was went out to a road that wasn't used very often. I don't know if he had it cordoned off or anything, but basically a road that wasn't used much. Put a wall of styrofoam, polystyrene, and painted the picture to look like the road continued on. Now, that in itself's pretty fancy, and I've been to Universal Studios where you've got a road exactly like that. The road goes down and goes to a landscape. So you take a photo in front of it and it looks like the road goes for kilometres.
And I've got to say, it was a pretty good painting as well.
It was.
So looking at it, it's kind of hard to tell that it's a wall of styrofoam.
Correct. Now, if I'm a human driving along at daytime, do you think I can pick it up? I think I still would. There'd be some subtle differences.
Yeah, but if you're not expecting it.
Maybe not. Not expecting a big wall.
And look, there might be a curiosity, like, is something about it. But, would I slow down for it? Anyway, I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, so as he then set up the whole image, it was to see whether Tesla's cameras were clever enough to pick out that this was a styrofoam wall, not just an image of it going forward. So if it could pick up the styrofoam wall, it would stop. If it had some form of LiDAR or even radar, it would stop because it would go, there's something there. The picture looks like it's okay, but there's something there. I'm just going to pull up just to be safe. Went back some distance, came forward in full self-driving mode, 40 miles an hour, so it's going on a reasonable sort of pace. And, of course, it ploughed straight through the wall.
And it's fantastic. You've got to watch it, folks.
No damage done to human or car, probably a few little marks or scratches on the car possibly. But it was really to show that this was something that maybe Tesla should reconsider. He then went and tried the same thing with another vehicle that was fitted with LiDAR sensors. And, of course, that car went I'm going to stop because I know there's something there.
Yeah.
So we've got a long way to go with self-driving. Got a long way to go before
We
we can match humans. The thing I think about the most is night driving. When I'm driving at night, sometimes, especially on the highway, I actually find Tesla's lights aren't that great. So I find it a bit hard to see well at night time anyway. But I look at it and there's sometimes some line markings aren't quite correct. There's some times where they've been doing some work on the road, there's no line markings, and we as humans have to slow down, drive the conditions and make sure we navigate correctly. But sometimes I go, that's a bit confusing. I wonder, maybe I shouldn't be thinking about these things while I'm driving, but I wonder what would happen if this car was a full self-driving car. How would it cope with this road at the moment? Now, part of me says I'd love them to integrate the actual mapping, GPS mapping, into the driving of the car.
Yeah.
There's certainly a delay there without a doubt, but surely you could look ahead far enough to go, I've got a bit of an idea where the road goes, but then you're saying to talk about getting that very accurate as to where it keeps the car. Sometimes we talk about GPS being maybe 1.5 meters accurate. Well, that's not going to be good enough if you're 1.5 meters over the other side of the road. But it is more accurate than that these days, especially with a combination of different satellite navigation services. So it's interesting. I don't know whether
it is interesting. And if someone builds a styrofoam wall and paints the road, paints a tunnel on it, for me at night time, I'm probably just going to plough into it myself.
You're probably right. And if you believe, maybe it'll just be a tunnel anyway. So,
like Roadrunner, just run straight through your own painting.
That's right. So there's a long way to go, I think, still before we get to full self-driving.
Well, here's a story that's something of a revolution for the hearing impaired. Imagine you could convert sign language straight into text with zero fuss. Well, imagine no more, because the SpellRing has now become a thing for signers. How does this SpellRing work, Matt?
It is pretty cool, actually. So the American Sign Language finger spelling is normally used when you're doing things like a word that might be a technical word.
Yeah, right.
Something you can't easily translate with normal sign language. So people that are hard of hearing or that you use some sort of sign language normally have some sort of finger spelling capabilities.
Right.
So that's first step. Now, when you start to look at the amount of words you've got available, well, it's kind of unlimited because it's finger spelling, but you've got about 20,000 ASL words that are commonly used. Now, that's not bad when you consider the average human's passive vocabulary, so words they would understand if they hear it, is about 20 to 40,000 words. Their active vocabulary is about 5 to 10,000. And I find that myself. I never really thought about it before, but you'd hear a word sometimes.
How many words do I really know?
Well, you hear a word and you'll go, I know what that means, but gee, I wouldn't have used that in a sentence in a long time. I don't remember using that word, but when you hear it, you know what it means. So it's almost one of those things I go,
I've got a Blackadder episode running through my head right now. You know the one I'm talking about. Anyway, keep going.
You've almost got to make a habit. I like to use the word "girt" on a regular basis, part of our national anthem.
Yeah, just throw "girt" in every now and then.
That's right. I'll be sitting around with a bunch of kids and I go, gee, I'm girt by children at the moment. So
I like to work in whelmed. You know how you can be underwhelmed or overwhelmed.
What about just whelmed?
Just whelmed, yeah. I like to,
right.
yeah.
So that's a steady state. I'm not under, I'm not over, I'm just at a steady state of whelmed.
And instead of being disgusted, I'm gusted. You know that, yeah.
That's right. There's some words that we
Sorry,
seem to throw things in front of.
So let's not make up words and confuse people.
That's right. So what this little SpellRing does is it sits on your thumb, about the size of a 20-cent piece. So it's not tiny, but it's not huge either. And then as anyone that's wearing that thumb spells out words, it actually can translate that into both text or audio. So you can be having a conversation with someone, because it's a bit rude if I'm talking to you with sign language and there's a person standing beside me that doesn't understand sign language and they're not really part of the conversation. So they could be seeing that and hearing that as well. But even for yourself, if I'm an experienced finger speller and you're hard of hearing, you could actually see the text coming up on a screen of a device. So whether that's your own personal device or sitting in an auditorium, maybe you could see it coming up while they're doing finger spelling.
Yeah, finger spelling, like they've got a public speaker speaking it at the podium, and then you've got the signer standing next to them.
Yep.
You could also have subtitles there.
Correct. And you can have subtitles now as well with AI being quick enough to convert the spoken word. So that's good as well.
Maybe you wouldn't do the whole. It's like the what is it? Game of telephone where you've got to translate this thing several times over. Yeah, just maybe once.
It might be you might be reading it and then watching the finger spelling and seeing what came up to actually give you a different. But the issue, I suppose, is that you can watch someone that can fingerspell and you can see the words that are coming up without having to have the skills. Then when you communicate back with them, it's the issue of, do I use fingerspelling? I don't know it. Or do I talk? 'Cause some people that are hard of hearing can still talk, even though it doesn't sound perfect. They can still get the meaning across, or they can type. So there's a whole range of ways to basically communicate now. But just the idea of this small little tool, which has got a few things in it. So
just fixes to your thumb.
So it's got a gyroscope to track motion. It detects inaudible sound waves. So as it moves around, it's kind of picking up different sounds there. It's got a speaker and a microphone. So it's all built into that small little device. And, of course, what amazes me with these devices, the components are getting smaller and smaller, but the battery is always a thing that seems to be the limiting factor. So when you can start to get to that small size, and still there's a battery in it, which may only last for an hour, it may only last for a small period of time, but it's still got enough to keep it going for that period of time.
Yeah, that's clever.
And then you wonder what it's got to drive in that process. So Bluetooth, one of the advantages of having things communicate via Bluetooth is very low power consumption. Something like this, so with a speaker in it, if it's got to make a noise, that starts to have to drive air, which makes it a bit harder as well. So maybe you'd Bluetooth to another device to try and get the volume to be a little bit louder. So maybe if you keep doing this, you could integrate it into some eyeglasses. We've talked about better and better eyeglasses now. So I could be wearing those. Someone could be finger spelling, and then I could actually be watching on the glasses. So a whole range of different bits of potential. But I just love the fact that people come up with these different ideas and just minor movements. If I can see what someone's saying because I know finger spelling or I know ASL, then I can get some computer algorithm to learn that and then translate it. So it's one of the bits of power of AI, I suppose, just learning from watching those things.
Well, if you've been holding off from buying an EV because they take too long to charge, then it's time to start fumbling for another excuse, because BYD has just released its ultra-fast charger. You'll be back on the road as fast as anyone at the Bowser, if not faster. Now, Matt, this has made recharging more like a pit stop, hasn't it?
It has made it more like a pit stop, and I think one of the big challenges they had during the process of developing this was what to call it. Because we've got fast charging, sure, that's in our garages. And then we've got supercharging.
Yeah, Tesla's already taken that one.
Yeah, that's right. So what do I go after? Super? Well, Ultra seems to be the next obvious name that you would call something.
So Ultra supersedes Super.
It seems to be,
right.
And let's look at the specs of this. In fact, I charged up the other day.
So no one thought about doing mega chargers or anything like that?
Well, that's probably next, isn't it? Ultra. If someone said to me, which is, well, oh no, we're combining them now. If someone said, which is bigger, a mega or an ultra? Ultra sounds impressive, doesn't it? But mega sounds big.
Apples and bananas, unfortunately, if you're actually talking some sort of reason. But anyway.
So I charged up a supercharger the other day. This is one of Tesla's new superchargers. And my car was charging not quite 250 kilowatts. It was about 230 odd kilowatts. And that was giving me about 1,478 kilometres per hour of charge speed. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
That is. And I think that is still impressive.
Funnily enough, we plugged in and we just ducked across to grab a quick bite to eat. There's not enough time. I wanted to slow down. We grabbed the bite to eat. We hadn't actually sat down in the cafe. We had sat down. We hadn't actually received our food. We sat down, and then I've got the notification on my phone to go, you're getting close to charge. Don't stay there for too much longer. Otherwise, idle fees will apply. I've gone, I haven't got my food yet. Can you slow down a little bit? So it's getting to that stage where it's good. But that's now. That's right now today that we can charge at that. BYD has said this is still an issue as to why people don't buy electric vehicles. Now, I'm not convinced it is, but I get it that it could be a bit of an issue for some people.
I think for the people who don't have EVs, I think it's an issue.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So they said, well, let's blow it out of the water. Forget this 229, 230, 240 kilowatts. The Tesla ones are theoretically 250 kilowatts, but it doesn't always give you that full power. These ones are 1,000 kilowatts of power. 1,000. So maybe they could have called it a kilo charger, but that'd be too weak.
I think kilo just sounds too weak.
It does, doesn't it? It's 1,000, but no. 1,000 kilowatts would be a kilo charger. No, okay, I'm with you.
And if you say mega, then that means million, so that's not going to make any sense whatsoever.
Right. No, okay, so stick with Ultra.
We're going with Ultra. We accept Ultra.
I approve, BYD. It's done.
It's been fully endorsed.
That's right. So this is capable of adding about 400 kilometres of range in 5 minutes. So if there's 12 5s and 60, that's about 4,800 kilometres an hour. That was 1,500 there. So that sounds about right. Yeah, so that matches. So I just did a quick maths there. So they're claiming 400 kilometres in 5 minutes.
All
now,
I know is it'll give me almost a full charge from almost 0 back to 100 in, 5 minutes? Yeah.
Now, when's the last time you went to a petrol station? Now, put a stopwatch on yourself next time you go there. From the time you pull up, start the stopwatch, and then you get out and you fill up and you stand there and wait. It seems to take a while to pump all that petrol in, and your tanks will be fairly empty to do all this.
Bingo.
And then get out, and then you walk in the servo, you get tempted by the chocolates, and you get in a line.
Bingo. You get in the line.
That's
so
right.
if you're charging up, this is all probably done over your phone
Yeah.
with phone connection.
That's right.
So you're just plugging in, and then as soon as you're done, you're out.
Exactly. Now,
And you'll even
I don't know for
standing
sure.
there in the petrol station looking all grumpy at you. Like, oh, those EV drivers, they just charge up so fast now.
They're so superior. So I reckon you could just about chew up 5 minutes at a petrol station.
Yeah.
Maybe
Easily.
not.
I think you could easily do 5 minutes at a petrol station.
Good. Right, I'm with you then. I'm
Yes.
in total agreement. So they're obviously saying this is going to be a better way to charge, to get people to that idea where they can just stop and charge. Now, they've got plans across China to install 4,000 of these ultra-fast charging stations, which is fantastic. That's what you want. You want lots of charging stations. That's great. They build this, the actual BYD itself is on a 1,000-volt platform, which is some of the other ones out there are much lower than that. So that's part of the way they're achieving their high charging. But obviously they've developed the batteries quite quickly to be able to accept this amount of charge, because in the past they sometimes would limit the charge for safety reasons because the battery wasn't designed to handle that sort of charge level. So the only downside is that we probably won't see them for some time. We're probably in Australia not going that well in terms of our uptake of EVs.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going to focus on rolling them out across Australia. They might do in some of the nations, some of the European nations, the Scandinavian type nations that are basically jumping on board. But China last year, 45% of new car sales were electric. So that's pretty impressive.
There you go.
Around Europe, you're getting maybe 20%. Around America, you're probably not even hitting 10%. Australia, 6 or 7%.
Can I say, well, I'm surprised in Sydney how few charges there were. I would have thought there would have been a lot more charges at this stage. So if you have got any sort of influence in Sydney at all, get your act together and get more charges.
That's right.
Please.
Because I think you're right, especially when you go from our perspective, we go from a trip to Sydney. That's what we want to be able to find is a charger somewhere.
Nice and convenient and easy, please.
Yeah, that's right. I still do the cheat thing where I just take my extension cord to a motel and plug in somewhere, and then I just
Oh, you're going to make
that.
some of our audience really cranky about that.
That's right. They're stealing electricity, which I am. I'm
Or
probably stealing $3 worth.
$3.50 worth, yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably spending $300 a night at a motel and stealing $1 or $3 worth of electricity. So anyway, that's pretty exciting. Battery chemistry changing, voltage is changing, the charges themselves are changing, lots of changes there. But it certainly is getting to the stage where people are going to have to say, you know what, I've run out of excuses. I'm going to have to buy one of these things.
Yeah.
Damn it, James and Matthew, I'm going to have to get one.
Now, you may not have thought about it much before, but it might surprise you that current weather predicting models can take hours or even days to produce a forecast. All that effort, and they still get it wrong though, folks. So, well, AI is now on the case, and a new weather predicting model can churn out a forecast in a split second. I'm not sure about this one, Matt. I mean, I can make a forecast in a second too, but...
What's it going to be like? I mean, is there any other profession that we accept it being wrong so often?
Yes, so the lack of accountability of weather forecasters...
And we just seem to go, okay, well, that's the forecast, and whatever.
it might happen.
It may be, maybe not. Now,
it's going to rain, it's going to rain, it's going to rain, and then nothing.
Probably being a bit harsh on weather forecasters, isn't it? Because
we'll back up.
that little thing called nature gets in the road sometimes. But we do accept that it's wrong a lot. What they've tried to do over the years is tried to use more and more computing power. So they said if we put more information into some supercomputer, surely that's going to get to the stage where it's going to give us better answers. And there's logic in that because there are so many variables in it. Pump more information in, surely at somewhere down the track, you're going to be able to say, yes, now we know all these things that feed into that. That's what gives us the weather. But is there enough rhyme and reason to that? I don't know. But AI has been thrown the problem now, and basically give the information from the beginning and let AI analyse that and just see if you can see some patterns, not humans, see if AI can see some patterns there that we don't even know, maybe we don't even understand, we don't notice, and then you have a crack at it. And so just with the power of a desktop computer, not a supercomputer, just with the power of a desktop computer, feeding a range of components in, letting it play its algorithm game to just basically make sense of that, in 1 second, it's being able to generate forecasts that are as accurate or sometimes more accurate than supercomputers. Oh. So it only uses about 10% of the input data required by our current forecasting system. So obviously a lot less data in. You'd think, well, surely the answer's not going to be as good. So with all of that, it's still getting the accuracy at about the same or some steps higher, some small percentage higher than some supercomputers. So then I started thinking, well, what about if you did that with the extra information, gave it to AI and still used a supercomputer so you can put more information in? They haven't tried that yet. But if they do, surely that's going to increase the level of accuracy. If you've got less information and you're getting information out that's about the same, we'll give it more information and see if you can get something even better. Or maybe...
So there's no point in throwing out the mainframe at the Bureau of Meteorology.
Well, I don't think so.
The guy who's backing his truck up to the door right now.
That's right. Beep, beep, I can hear it. So you're right. I don't think yet, but then again, maybe there is so much randomness in the information. So if I go into a casino and I take my AI chip on my shoulder and I go, just watch the roulette table and then tell me when it's going to land on 27 and I'll put all my money on 27, I don't know that it's ever going to predict that because there's too much randomness.
Too much randomness. Maybe, so is it the same with weather? Is that what you're saying?
I'm guessing.
So what we're expecting now, after 1 second, it's just going to say, your guess is as good as mine.
That's right. It's going to rain sometime and the sun's going to come out. So maybe that's why it's quite as accurate. But we are taking a different approach to things. This is the interesting thing here.
Well, AI's got its stamp on everything these days.
It does. And the fascinating thing here is the solution in the past has been to throw more computing power at it. Now, once we start realising that maybe AI, and that's when NVIDIA had their big drop in share price a month or two ago, because there was a realisation that maybe just more computing power wasn't necessarily what was needed. A different approach to things might be what's needed. So fascinating there. What else are we going to see with this? Who knows? But keep an eye on this one because it'll be good to have accurate weather, wouldn't it? Maybe I like the mystery.
It'd be lovely to have accurate weather, but we've just lived for so long with inaccurate weather.
Yeah, we have. There's a mystery about that. What else going to do today? It's a good topic to look at that weather today. I can't believe it's raining. No one said it was going to rain. What would you do with that when we had accurate weather?
Well, how's your back going these days? See, a bad back is debilitating. No secrets there. But what flavour is your therapy, though? Do you do physio or do you do chiro? Or do you just chow down on paracetamol and ibuprofen? Well, if you genuinely suffer from chronic back pain, then you might like to lean into a little AI for some alleviation. Matt, AI for spinal therapy now.
AI for weather, AI for spinal therapy. What next? Yeah. So lower back pain is an issue, and I've had a sore back sometimes when I've done some big, normally a mountain biking event, and it's debilitating.
Absolutely.
You can't do anything. You lift your arm up, and you go, my arm's nowhere near my back, but it still hurts my lower back. So it is debilitating. Across the world, chronic lower back pain affects 223 million people globally. Yeah. And it's one of the top causes of disability, not a permanent disability, top causes of being inconvenienced by some sort of physical ailment. In England alone, 350,000 people have been waiting for some type of treatment, physio, manipulation, whatever it might be. And that was at the end of last year. So it's a big issue.
Wow.
And they just can't get enough health workers to try and help people that have got chronic back pain. So like you said, it might just be grin and bear it. It might be pop a few pills and it'll be okay. You don't notice it, but maybe that's not great to keep doing that.
It's keeping the chiros in business and, physios are very, very active with it too.
Keeping chiros and physios in business, but there's just not enough of them. So even the lost productivity in the UK, 23.4 million work days were lost to untreated musculoskeletal issues. I forgot that right. So there's an AI-powered physiotherapy app now. you think, yeah, sure, someone chucks a AI app and that's all fine. But it's actually registered with the UK healthcare authorities and integrated into the national health system. So there's obviously some credibility associated with it. And just like we're finding with some other medical AI processes, it really is a process of feeding the information in, responding to the various questions, and then at the end of that, you get some form of treatment that you should do. Now, I know when I've been to the physio, you've got a sore calf muscle, and the first thing the physio does is lets me have a feel of it, and I'm sure their job is to cause pain. That seems to be their first thing they do, is to squeeze around. Does that hurt? Yes, of course it does. That's why I've come to see you.
Stop
I'd like it
squeezing
not
me
to
there.
hurt. That's right. It didn't hurt so much until you squeeze the thing. So you don't get that treatment when you use an AI tool. What you do get is you ask or answer a number of questions and get to the point where your AI app would then say, here's what we recommend. Is it just straight rest? Is it some stretching exercises? Is it trying to do some walking on it? Whatever it might be, here's the solution. Now, I actually thought about it and I wondered, are people more likely to respond? Because the first problem that people tell me when they're a physio is they say, I give this person some treatment, I see them in a week's time. Did you do that? Oh, well, I got a bit busy and I didn't quite get around to that. So people don't always do what they're meant to do. But would you respond more to a smartphone telling you what to do? Yeah, James, here's a reminder popping up. You need to go and do those stretches. I need you to stretch 5 minutes before breakfast.
I reckon, that's an interesting question. And I think it's going to be different for different people. I reckon that I'll probably respond more to a physio, but...
Well, I think you're right. It will be different for different people. But I think one of the things is that the physio doesn't ring me each morning. Matthew,
yeah, okay.
have you done those stretches?
The phone's got an alarm on it.
Yeah.
I just go, hey.
The phone pops up apps. And if you game, I think people respond to gamification.
Yeah.
If you gamify that, you need to get your points today, James, to get your stretching done or to get your treatment done.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, I haven't done that yet. I better go and do that. So, but that's, again, different people will respond to that. Not everyone will respond to that competition in inverted commas. So I think it's interesting, though, that I think we're going to see more and more as the first step, because we do know that we've got the ability to treat lots of ailments across the world, but we just don't have enough people in the medical profession to be able to treat it. So if we get almost a triage where you go through a process first of all, take care of some easy things. If it's still hurting or it's still something that's very bad, sure, go and have a professional look at it and stick their fingers around and poke it and prod it and make it hurt even more. So I think as that, I think that's a pretty good first step. So fascinating to see if that gets rolled out across the world. But the fact that it's been registered with UK healthcare, that says to me there's a bit more credibility to it.
AI now being registered. In 1985, the Rocksteady crew were at the height of their fame. I don't know if anyone remembers the Rocksteady crew, but they taught us how to pop and lock, how to do the worm and the Cossack kick. Breakdancing in those days was social capital, folks, breakdancing. My big move was the robot, which showed a supreme lack of foresight, because now in 2025, Boston Robotics have built a machine and they just might put any wannabe breakdancer like myself to shame. Matt, it's time to bust out the cardboard again, throw on your baggy tracksuit, crank up the boombox to 11 and make way for the rhythmic stylistics of a little robot called Atlas.
I hadn't thought about a robot doing the robot.
It's probably terrible at it.
Maybe the robot
It can do the worm, it can do like
maybe should do the
helicopter
human.
And all that. I'll do the human.
The human. Well, I can do the robot, then let's see your human. Boston Dynamics, we have talked about Boston Dynamics a little bit over the years, and they are very good at creating a bit of publicity. They're good at actually creating something.
There's a lot of imagination happening in that place.
Absolutely. And I think one thing they do very well is they go through a very technical process to create something that's fantastic, but then that's all well and good. That's sitting in the laboratory out the back. Someone in the marketing department says, how do we capture the imagination of the world? How do we get people talking about this? How do we get James and Matthew to talk about this on their podcast? That's normally the number one question the marketers would be asking. And in saying that, doing some breakdancing, absolutely, what a cool concept. So to see a robot to actually come out, and sure, it looks a bit clunky and a bit stiff still, not like some of the wonderful back spins and head spins that always seem like they're going to break someone's neck any moment now, but it does seem...
But balance is a really important thing and a very difficult thing to achieve for something that's bipedal. It stands on two legs, right?
Yep.
And so if you can get it to do dance moves to some sort of rhythmic beat or whatever, then you've really achieved a solution to a major problem.
Do you think these robots could break dance on their way to taking clothes from my ground, from my floor, into the washing machine. I don't care how they get there.
You need that Jetsons robot, the housekeeper robot, don't you?
So this robot does a frog-like crawl. It does a leg sweep, rolls, helicopter spin. So lots of the classics in breakdancing.
Oh, yeah.
But again, all these movements take a lot of
Probably
coordination.
not so fussy about the cardboard either.
No, it's probably doesn't mind if it scratches its back a little bit there. Maybe it's got a carbon fibre back that it can spin on maybe. But these are pretty exciting steps forward. And then other people will go, well, if that robot can do that, oh, you know what? I've got an idea. I reckon we could use it to do this. And that's what Boston Dynamics are all about. They don't want to create all the robots in the world. They want to create robots that can be utilised, a bit like Spot the Robot Dog. You go out there and apply Spot in whatever setting you need. We'll go and create a robot that can breakdance. Sure, it's probably not going to go in breakdancing competitions in the Olympics, but what it can do is, if it can do those movements, it can also do these movements over here. And that's a really exciting part to see what other movements people come up with. So,
and you'll all note that we haven't made any comments about breakdancing in the Australian breakdancing team in the Olympics either.
Not any mention whatsoever. No names mentioned there. I was staying right away from it, James.
Right.
The Olympics was as far as I was going with that.
But maybe we could have a robot represent us next time.
Maybe. It couldn't be less successful, could it? Oh, there I go. I've done it now.
Oh, no. Back up. All right.
Right,
yeah,
yeah,
but well done, Atlas, and well done, Boston Robotics. Street lighting has come a long way since the aged whale oil lamps of the Victorian era. Now, these oil lamps gave way to coal gas lamps and then to incandescent lamps at the dawn of the electrical revolution. Then in the 50s, mercury vapour and metal halide lamps gave us a bit brighter street lights at night until LEDs took over as a cheaper, more energy-efficient alternative in the noughties. Streetlights are a crucial item for public safety, but an enormous drain on the public purse. But Matt, a new nanomaterial, may just smash energy efficiency benchmarks completely on this front.
A couple of things that are pretty cool about this. The first thing is, where we live is in a dark sky area. So a dark sky area is somewhere where they basically try and limit the light pollution that's going up into the sky.
Because of observatories?
Yeah, so we've got Mount St Cruick near where we are in Coonabarabran.
Yeah.
And so this whole area, I don't know how many hundreds of kilometres it goes for, but it's been designated a dark sky area.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, if they are
so Coonabarabran, which is about an hour and a half's drive away or so, maybe closer to 2 hours even, they're worried about Dubbo's light interfering.
Well, the whole area is designated as dark sky.
Yeah.
So, for example, if someone puts in an application to the local council anywhere in that area, they've got to satisfy the condition that a certain amount of light pollution won't go up into the sky. Yeah, okay. So the whole idea is to make sure that they can keep it dark for basically the observatories around Coonabarabran, but also just to limit that light pollution because you've got lots of stargazers that come along this area. So it's a pretty cool area, and people do notice it when they come out from, say, Sydney, where you get lots of light pollution, and they go, wow, it seems really dark out here, which means you can see stars and various things in the sky even better. So effectively there's an International Dark Sky Association which you can register with and stay in touch with that. So that's all fascinating. But obviously we think it's sensible to not have light going up into the air. Let's keep the light going down where you can see. But this little new Nano PE actually flips it on its head. And what you do with this is you actually face the light up into the sky, which makes no sense at all.
Yeah, that makes no sense. So you're trying to light the streets.
That's right.
So
I started reading this
up.
and I'm thinking, how can this possibly be correct? When you start to break it down a bit more, this particular nanomaterial does two things that are quite clever. First thing is it reflects most of the visible light, but it allows through radiation, it allows through heat. And one of the issues with LEDs, all lights, but in particular LEDs, using more electricity is they heat up. So when you've got a normal LED that's facing down, it kind of traps that heat there and the LED itself starts to heat up. You point it up, then what you'll effectively do is get to the stage where you're sending that heat up, but you don't want the light going up. So this nanomaterial allows heat through, but reflects the light.
Okay.
So
there you are.
Again, who would have thought, let's point the light up. That's a sensible way to light the street below us. Now, there's a stupid way to light the street below us, but of course you coat the top with the nanomaterial. Now, if they replaced in one foul swoop, if they said, let's click our fingers and basically say we'll get rid of all the lights across America, street lights, normal street lights, and replace them with this type of light, you'd save 1 million tonnes of carbon dioxide annually. Now,
Oh, wow.
I can't do the figure of how much they produce, but obviously it's a lot more than that now. Yeah. So that sounds pretty reasonable. But when you also consider about 20% of the world's electricity usage is lighting, then if you can make a big difference to lighting, you can make a big difference to CO2 across the world. Obviously, you're not going to replace it all in one go. It takes a little bit of time to replace that. But I would more see as your...
Well, they've replaced all the whale oil lamps, haven't they? So.
That took more than a day.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's the thing. As we keep going forward, there are better and better materials. So even LEDs, if you want to go and replace all the LEDs in a town or a city, it's very expensive. But new developments, as you put in new estates, okay, they have now got to be LEDs. As you then fix some older ones, let's replace that with an LED. So you could keep doing it, and there'll be another material that'll come along and something else that'll be better than this again. But at the moment, this is quite fascinating. And I know I give Nano a bit of a hard time. I'm sorry, Nano. It seems like if you want to make something seem pretty sexy and cool, you just stick the word nano in front of it, and then everyone goes, ooh, it's nano. But in this case, they do talk about the fact that it is nano because it's got very small gaps to allow things through and other things not through. So, nano being 10 to the minus 9, often we talk about nanometers, 10 to the minus 9 metres. So effectively, they probably have got a legitimate claim to using nano in this particular example rather than just a sexy
So we're talking
term.
about anything that is got a wavelength of greater than about 700 nanometres. That's red light. We're talking about the infrared light, which is the heat that's getting through.
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
right.
So if it's 800 or 900 nanometres long, then it's still going to fit through those gaps.
Yeah, and that's obviously the logic for it, is to go and let things through and other things not through. And when you start to deal with visible light and not visible light, it gets pretty tricky because it's a bit harder to work on that non-visible light because you can't see it. So you've got to do other things. So very clever. You can't go and buy these lights yet. As with many things we talk about, it'll be coming, I think, by Christmas. Just not sure which year Christmas. So.
Tracking apps are not new, but they're quite popular, particularly with families where parents like to know where their 13-year-old is hanging out or how far away mum is from picking you up or picking up the offspring. But for the elderly, adopting technology is a little more intimidating and can be quite frustrating. But one tracking app has seen some success with the seniors market, Matt.
Yeah, and I think about, I try and tell this story to my kids and they don't get it. When I was at school, one of my jobs was a milk run. So you'd get picked up by the Milko, as he was known, and you'd get in the van and you'd go and deliver milk bottles to all the people. And I finished my milk run, I can't remember, 6 o'clock, say. Finished my milk run at 6 o'clock, and I used to stop outside the school, and that's where I'd wait for mum or dad to pick me up. And I sat there for about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour one day. Oh. They forgot about me. Do I start walking home? Do they turn up then just when they're about to walk home? Of course, you don't have that situation now because either people know where you are because they can track you, or they just make a phone call and say, where are you? You've forgotten about me. Come and pick me up, or whatever it might be. You can start walking home and say, I'm on my way home. Pick me up when you see me as you're driving past. So you tell that the kids today, they don't really understand what you're talking about.
They don't understand the turmoil that we had back in the
right.
70s and 80s.
And what I actually find fascinating is, I'm going to talk about kids and parents in a moment, but with the various Find My apps, I'm fascinated at how many of my kids have their friends sharing their location in their Find My. Like,
there are no secrets anymore.
No, you've really got to trust someone a lot, haven't you, to say, I'm going to give you access to where I am always, every single minute of the day.
Or you don't have trust, you just are oblivious.
Maybe. So we have, our kids had phones as they were growing up and they had ability to track on them, and we'd say to our kids, look, we can track you because it's safer for you, and it was probably good for us to give a bit of some, maybe we helicopter parents or maybe we were stalking them too much, but it was one of those things where we could just keep an eye on where they were after school or after they'd been at some sort of sporting or whatever practice. So that gave us a level of comfort. Of course, you'd also see if they really did go around to Mary's place when they said they were going there or whether they in fact at Johnny's place. So that was nice as well. As they've gotten older, we have more about removing them from our account and vice versa. And what I find now is that I'll get 2-3 phone calls in a row from one of my kids and find, it must be an emergency, I better answer it. And they go, why didn't you answer the first time? I was just busy. But I know you're at home. Why can't you answer it? You're not anywhere. You're not out somewhere, so you can answer the phone. What do you mean? Well, I just looked at where you were on Find My iPhone and you were at home, so just pick up the phone, will you? It's like, stop stalking me. That was meant to be our job to stalk you. But what we're finding now is that grandparents or elderly people are being given phones, watches, devices by loved ones, children, grandchildren, for example, so they can track where they are, particularly when you've got people with dementia. Even if you've got people that are still living independently, but some people are a bit worried about them, just have a quick check. You don't want to ring all the time and say, you okay today, Grandma?
Yeah.
But just have a quick check about where they are. And sometimes just seeing they're still moving rather than they seem to have sat in the lounge room for a long time. Do I need to go and check on them? Yeah, so it is handy, and the accuracy of Find My is getting better and better all the time. We know about it. We've talked about it before with various tags you can use, not just with iPhones, but with other devices as well. So it's an exploding market.
Yeah.
And the stalking / tracking / keeping an eye on where you are, location tracking is...
Yeah, with dementia patients that tend to wander, and dementia takes many different forms, but my grandfather did a bit of wandering in his day as he came down with dementia, and it was very worrying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So it's just a nice comfort level, and people might say, just pick up the phone and ring Grandma, but you might have time and Grandma mightn't have time. Grandma might be busy watching TV or doing something else. So it's quite fascinating how much is being used and by whom.
Now, futurists discussing autonomous vehicles have for some time talked about the need for them to engage in real-time communication between vehicles with infrastructure and important data providers. Well, a future where that is normalised is one step closer with NASA's new software framework. Matt, the morning commute through peak hour may be about to get a bit of a facelift.
Well, maybe not yet.
Not just
it's
yet,
going,
right.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of time to go.
There's some experimenting going on.
Absolutely, yes. So it's exciting if we could just click our fingers and make this technology applied everywhere at the same time. But, of course, the problem with technology is we're creating it, we're implementing it, and then as that becomes the norm, already there's a new thing that's being developed that will going to replace that. So getting everyone to accept a common standard is obviously very difficult. I can imagine some of the telcos over the years trying to decide on common standards for mobile phones or Wi-Fi standards, all those sort of things. Very tricky because my system is better than your system because I created my system and you created your system. So all of that. So getting common standards is an issue. But NASA have got a software framework they call the Data and Reasoning Fabric. Not like the space-time fabric, it's just Data Reasoning Fabric. DRF. So they originally designed that for autonomous drones, and the idea is that let's get some communication happening from the devices that are moving and the devices that are still on the ground and other devices that are moving. So they started adapting it in experiments, not in the real world yet, for ground transportation. So the real focus here is autonomous vehicles or even semi-autonomous. So the idea is that you've got real-time communication with vehicles, traffic lights, maybe even weather systems. If the AI weather systems get even better all the time, then maybe a bit of weather in there as well, and infrastructure that's around. So, for example, I just have this picture in my head. I get in the car to go to work, and as I'm driving along and I'm doing my 60 kilometres an hour on a street legally driving, it knows already that the traffic lights ahead are going to be red by the time that I get there. So don't keep going 60. Why do that? Let's just slow you down a little bit. And then I also know that the car park that I've put into my sat-nav is actually going to be full by the time I get there in half an hour. So rather than go there and drive around in circles a little bit, let's go and find that other car park. That's a 2-minute longer walk away, but I'm going to be able to get a park straight away. So I've got infrastructure, talking to traffic lights, talking to my car.
This is amazing.
And then the critical part, which is where it would be wonderful, is the communication with other cars. So when someone runs that red light in the other direction that I'm about to go through with a green light, then I don't have a collision there because those two cars are talking to each other going, oh, you need to stop at the traffic lights. But if you're an idiot and you keep going, well, you need to stop at the traffic lights because you're about to get hit by this car coming the other way.
But also avoiding the whole traffic snake business.
Yeah. Mythbusters have done a great episode on the concertina effect when you get traffic. So removing that and just bringing everyone down a little bit in speed, you don't need to rush to the next traffic lights and then screech to a halt and then wait and then rush to the next one and screech to a halt. You can actually just do it gradually, or you might need to go just that little bit faster, not over the speed limit, but a little bit faster to get to the next traffic light.
Just a smoother ride.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, the big fly in the ointment with this scenario and other scenarios that I've seen that are similar to this is that's great. Your car talks to my car, talks to the traffic lights, talks to the car park, talks to the weather. But there's an old car, an old vintage car, an old 2024 car.
Stick in the mud.
Stuck in the traffic somewhere. And who knows about that one?
Yeah,
now,
it's anyone's guess.
Do you try and
They're not communicating with anyone.
No, they're not. They're just doing their own thing.
Humbug.
So do you get traffic lights that take enough camera images or enough video images to know where that vehicle is so I can still integrate that into the whole system, or do you throw your hands up in the air and say it's never going to work?
And just shake your fist at it as you drive
until we
past.
all get the same system in there. So that's the real issue. Whereas when NASA's been doing some of their testing, either with drones or with vehicles, they can just go, you know what, we can build a little mini test environment with all things talking to each other. But there's going to be some, no matter how much you say, from tomorrow we're going to be all communicative vehicles, well, there's going to be someone out there. And even classic cars, you take some old Morris Minor from 1942, are you going to have to retrofit that with some type of communication
Well,
device?
whatever software goes into these things, they're going to have to be able to predict the things that aren't communicating.
That's the issue, isn't it? Yeah, that's exactly right. So pedestrians probably aren't communicating a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
Someone going past on a bike, do we have to have now?
Not until we're all microchipped. Come on, Bill Gates.
Maybe
Get busy.
Haven't done enough injections yet, surely. So that is fascinating, and some of the planning for that is fascinating, but the implementation, that's where I see some minor issues.
And that's all we have today, folks. I'm about to turn into a pumpkin. These microphones are going to turn into mice, and this beautiful blue dress that I'm wearing, it's going to become a rag in no time short. Matt, can you please hold this glass slipper of mine?
Sure, I'll just see if it fits first. Oh, I didn't realise your foot was so small, James.
Well, thank you for another cracking tech talk, at least.
Well, I'm going out to see if I can paint a styrofoam wall. I'm pretty impressed. I'm
going to run at it.
I'm sure he got a sign writer to put that image on there because it looked pretty impressive. Take a photo of that and then produce it as a large print.
Maybe paint your front gate as the garden that you've got on the other side.
Well, funny you should say that. I've tried to convince my wife to let me get a sign writer to put an image and stick on of a greenery like a hedge.
Yes,
and
then start saving up to pay for a new gate when someone runs into it.
That's probably true too. I'm just thinking of a Monty Python line there. What a hedge there. What's the knights that used to say knee? Get me a shrubbery. Get me a shrubbery. A shrubbery image across the gates is what I want.
One that'll make a 2-level effect. Anyway,
right.
Thanks for tuning in again, folks, to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. We're homegrown, we're hand-picked and bottled by artisans from way back when. Anyway, look, I look forward to seeing you again in a week's time. My name's James Eddy. I've been your host today, and it's always a pleasure to present Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson to you week after week. We hope to catch you again in another week's time.